All right, let's take this thing apart and see what she's made of. There's a little bit of, a couple of idiosyncrasies, a couple of things to know when you're taking it apart. It is not exactly the same as a standard, AR rifle would be. So we're going to start by removing this takedown pin right here. Just, use your bullet or whatever you want. Originally, this was very stiff for me. It has loosened up in the time that I've used it. Now you can see directly under here, this is the same as the first generation. You've got your takedown, call it a button, I guess, and then you can pivot the rifle up. Careful not to shoot your guide rod and springs out. I've done that multiple times in multiple generations of the rifle. And, as far as field stripping, if you need to access the bolt or you need to access some other things, that's available to you now. If you want to completely take the rifle down, then you're taking out this other pin. Again, this one used to be very stiff and it has loosened up on me as it's gone along. I've never had any of them walk out, don't get me wrong, but I don't necessarily need a tool every time to replace them. Now I can separate the upper from the lower. You can take a look in there. It looks a lot more like you would expect for a lower that's taking standard lower parts. This is our Trigger Tech combat trigger right in here. And if you can see in here, this is your magazine catch and release. This is your button that is manipulating the magazine catch and release. And it's a little bit different all in here because this spring creates tension for your safety. So it works a little bit differently than some people may be used to. And this spring also interacts to create tension for the magazine catch and the magazine release. Other than that, you've got your captive pivot pin here, you got your little window here, you can see the spring in there. And then, through the handguard, through the bottom is where your captive takedown pin is accessed. So there you have it. I mean, that's your lower. Moving on to the upper, something to be very aware of. You can take this bolt carrier out pretty much however you want. If you've got it pivoted, just pull it out, no big deal. However, when you're putting it back in, you need to invert the receiver so that gravity is pulling this towards the top of the upper receiver. Otherwise, I'm going to see if you guys can see this here. Let's take this out. You can see that our cam pin needs to run inside this channel here. And if it is not upside down and this falls down a little bit, this cam pin can fall out of that channel and it will get stuck, it will bind, it will jam, and you will have a hell of a time getting it unjammed and getting it even out of the gun so that you can properly align the cam pin in the channel again. But that's our bolt. Once the carrier is out, it's very easy to remove our charging handle, just slide it all the way back and it pops out. And it's just that catch that fits into that cutout. So now our upper is essentially stripped. And in terms of field stripping, there are very few reasons why you would need to go beyond that. We're going to go beyond that so that we can see the gas system, because the maintenance of the gas system is going to be so important for all users. So I'm going to take these screws off here, the same ones on the other side, and I'll be back in just a second. Now, quick note as I'm taking these out, the last time that I had this out, and when I did the piston breakage video also, I had mentioned that I retightened these to, I'm trying to remember if it was 40 or 45 foot-pounds. I'll have to go back and look, and I'll do that before I tighten these again. But they have not walked out or loosened at all. I've had absolutely no problem with these screws. So I just had a quick look. I believe it was 35 foot-pounds that I had tightened these to, and like I said, there's been no issues whatsoever. You can see as I'm doing this, They are nice and tight. And when I'm done with this, I will be retightening them back to 35 foot-pounds as well. It seems to be pretty good for me. Don't take that as standard. This is just what I'm doing on my rifle. Once all of the screws are out, you can see the handguard is loose. I can slide the handguard right off, and we are exposing now the barrel and the gas system. Now here's the problem. This loosens all the effing time. I have not been able to tighten it tight enough to keep it tight. I just yesterday checked it after maybe a month, and it was still tight. However, I took it out after checking it and shot a few hundred, well, not a few hundred, maybe about 100 rounds through it yesterday. And as you can see, it is finger tight now. And it's like I was able to loosen it up right away. And just so everybody can see, when I'm tightening this, let me see if I can find the right size. Let me find the right size head for this, and I'll be right back with you. So you can see when I tighten this, I tighten it as tight as I can, hand tight, and it still is coming loose. I've heard of people using blue Loctite in here. Yeah, absolutely, you can use blue Loctite in here. Do I want to have to break Loctite apart every time I need to take this apart to clean it? Because it does need to be cleaned, you know, fairly regularly. No, I don't really want to do that. I don't believe that I really should have to do that. Is it an absolute deal breaker for me? No, it's not a deal breaker for me. But could it be designed better? I believe so. Should it be designed better? I believe so. You can see that the gas regulator comes right out, and then the piston will come out from there. And there's our piston. Now, since we've got the piston, let's talk about the piston. On its face, there should be nothing wrong with this. It's just a solid piston that rides you know, through the block, in through the receiver, through a nylon bushing, hits your bolt carrier, helps cycle your rifle. However, with how thick it is and the tapering here so that the spring will fit on, breakage has been an issue with these pistons in every generation of this rifle, and this one has been no different. I've seen a really good analysis on the Cabbage YouTube channel. I can link to that on, below, and he did a really good analysis, much more intelligently and articulately than I could, about why this needs a redesign. He even makes some suggestions about how it could be redesigned, but I do believe it needs to be redesigned. And in addition to that, there seems to be some inconsistency with the rods themselves. I can't say that there's currently an inconsistency, but there certainly has been in the past, it seems. Now here's why I say that. Some break right at this point here, and they break completely clean. Mine did that. You can see my piston breakage video to see how it broke perfectly clean. That obviously, to me, that indicates that, you know, it was brittle enough so that it wouldn't bend. It just snapped. I've seen multiple other photos and even some videos out there existing on YouTube of pistons that have broken, and they did not snap, they bent. Meaning they kind of like seem to have like come out of the entry here into the receiver, or they caught or weren't straight, whatever it was, and instead of snapping, they bent. So it appears as though maybe some of these are too brittle and some of them are not too brittle. That's causing a bending versus a snapping. I have no way of proving this. It is just a thought, but it seems a little bit strange that some snap and some bend. I don't know if this is currently a problem. I'm not going to say that it is. When a piston does break, Kodiak seems more than willing just to send you out another one. I think the customer service on it has been good, but it exists. You need to know. All right, we took it apart. Now let's put it back together. Let's assume for a moment that I completely cleaned this, and you know, I'll do it on my own after this is done. I'm going to first insert the piston. And I want to make sure that, you know, it's nice and lined up. And I usually just, you know, run it through the top of the receiver just to make sure that it's lined up well. And this obviously is lined up well. Nothing that I'm going to need to worry about. After that, it's super simple, much easier than it was on the Gen 1 rifle, because it's just the one piece. Push the piston back so that there's no tension on it. Start screwing in your regulator. Screw it to hand tight, and then tighten it as tight as you can. Now, one thing I'll say, there's not a whole lot of room to get a screwdriver in here and to get a really good purchase on it either. You know, so I put a couple extensions on it. I make sure that, you know, I'm not going to over twist or anything like that. I'm not sure I should be grabbing at the gas block. Often I don't. I usually put this back together before I tighten this up, and I kind of grab the rifle. I have it apart just for the video, so I'm going to tighten it there. Whoop, I chose the wrong size. Let me get the right size here. We'll do this again. Okay, so make sure when you're tightening this that you really tighten it good. You don't want that coming out. And even though you've tightened it as tight as you can, check it every once in a while. Make sure that it stays tight. Now our gas system is back together. Give it a little bit of a run. Make sure that the piston is resting. It rests just inside the inside wall of the receiver here. It's not quite flush. You should be able to see it in there. I know you probably can't see it too well on camera, but as I run the rod, this should run pretty freely and pretty smoothly without any issues. If you feel any binding or issues whatsoever, it's going to cause you problems when you're shooting the gun. After that, put your handguard back on. And tighten your handguard screws down. I'm going to tighten these to 35 foot-pounds using my inch-pound screwdriver, and I'll be back in just a second. All right, our handguard is back together. Our screws are tightened to 35 foot-pounds.
What's with you, man? Come on!
Now the upper is ready to be fully assembled. Again, turn it upside down. Charging handle goes in first. Just kind of insert the grip in there, let it slide down the channel, no problem. So to get this started, make sure that the bolt is in the extended position so that this cam pin runs in this channel properly. I'm not sure if you can see that on camera. I hope that you can. And then slide it all the way down until the bolt fits into the chamber. This is what I do to make sure that I don't get any binding in that bolt carrier. Now I can get my lower. I can reattach my pivot pin first, and that fits in there just like so, ever so nicely. Pivot it up, and then I can take my guide rods and recoil springs, and I insert it into the receiver. I'm trying to do this awkwardly so the camera can see, and I'm making sure that I keep that button depressed, and then I fit the upper down on to the lower. The button will click in place when I'm in the right spot. Once our rifle is fully assembled, we need to do a function check. The bolt seems to run. It's locking up fully. It is holding open. The release is working. The safety is working. Seems to dry fire on safe. It will not dry fire. And we have reassembled our WK180C.